Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Here, Your Call to Action, here with Nathalie. Follow the fox. Follow the fox?
Follow the rabbit.
Follow the rabbits.
But you know, the fox usually follows the rabbit, so you know, it's
Oh,
fine either way.
close. I was listening to that song in the car with my son, What Does the Fox Say?
Oh,
Remember that
yes,
funny
yes,
song that they did?
absolutely.
Anyway. Hi guys, welcome to another episode here with Nathalie from Follow the Rabbit. We're here to discuss around her journey and her life around this amazing space of outdoor equipment and also what you've been up to for the last 20 years, give or take. Because you've been 15 years with, is it 15? Is it 15 or 12? I forget.
With C2 Summit?
Yeah.
11 years.
11.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I totally missed that one. But that's all right. Look, we've kicked off. I'm really curious to get, where did this all start? Because I know this seems a very taboo thing to say, but I don't give a fuck. How old are you?
How old I am?
Yeah.
38.
You're 38.
Yeah.
So where were you like back at like 18, 20, like kicking it from there? Did you go to uni? Did you study?
Yes, so I didn't know what I wanted to do for the longest time. I just know I love outdoor sports. I was into skiing, a lot of skiing, snowboarding, windsurfing, everything, just being outside, mountain biking. And that's what I really wanted to do. So I thought about becoming a sports teacher, but I wasn't that excited about it. And so when I go back, I looked at my high school newspaper the other day, and it actually says that I want to work in a sports business and live by the ocean someday in the future, which is very funny because back then I lived by the lake and I had no idea what I was going to do. And I actually went to a nutrition and chemistry high school. So it was very far away from anything what I'm doing now. And then I went to uni and I started English, linguistics and Italian for like just a year. But while I was doing this, I was working in a surf shop. And
You did English linguistics at university?
Yes. But I couldn't actually speak English very well at all. But it was just, I actually wanted to get into sports and I couldn't get in because it was a weird semester to start it.
If you were super passionate about sports, because look, windsurfing and all the extreme sports take a lot of high energy levels. And I would assume like following in that at such a young age, what was it? The university was just full or it just wasn't a course area that they focused on?
Oh, yes, no, it was. It was more that the high school I went to, because it was focused on nutrition and chemistry, and other high schools were focused on sports, and all those people wanted to go study sport as well. So they had an advantage over me, so I didn't get in. And then with universities in Germany, where I grew up, you can wait it out a few semesters, and then you have better chances to get in. So my plan was to study Italian and English to advance my language skills, and then switch to sports as soon as I would get in.
Oh, so it was like backdoor entry sort of direction.
Yeah, exactly.
Did
it was
it
just
work?
the best that I could come up with.
Yeah.
And I wanted to stay at a certain university that was close to the lake, so I could keep windsurfing there. So yeah, it probably would have worked, but I actually skipped out earlier because I was working for that surf shop, which was also a brand that is, they're called Loy Sports and KA Sales. And funny enough, KA Sales is actually an Australian brand. That is out of Melbourne, but they do mostly sales for sailboats, for Moss, and but they did windsurfing sales as well.
I'm getting a bit lost in the journey here. So you're working at a surf shop in Germany?
Yes.
By a lake?
Yes, but the surf shop was actually a brand as well, so it wasn't just a shop.
So it was more like clothing, more than selling the boards? Because
Surfboards.
You actually sold surfboards
Yeah,
by a lake?
no clothing. I repaired some surfboards, I sold surfboards,
How does that work? Because there's no beach. Like if the beach is...
There's a lake. It's like a lot of pebbles. Every time a ferry goes by, there's a little tail wave. So if it's windy, you like hurry up and you try and catch that wave. But it's mostly flat water.
Yeah.
It's flat water windsurfing.
So it's more like surfing on the back of the boat, styling, or...
No. It's just flat water. Windsurfing you can do. There's racing, there's free riding, there's freestyle, and then there's wave sailing. And wave sailing is always the ultimate. What I wanted to do. That's like what I had on the posters in my bedroom. But you have to start somewhere. So we had the lake, and every time there's wind, we drove. And
I never met anyone. Like I grew up in Geraldton, so I never met anyone that surfed on lakes. That is a foreign concept to me, like totally foreign. And I'm sure I'm not the only Aussie that may have said that phrase because we live by the beach everywhere we are in this country? Or is that a common thing? Like surfing on lakes is actually a thing?
Yeah. Well, windsurfing was a thing. Yeah, I mean, it was massive in the 70s, and then it kind of went down. And then kitesurfing came, which is kind of easier because you have less gear and you can kind of learn it faster. And so that's a big thing now here as well, obviously. But a lot of people go on flat water. Like here is a lot of flat water spots, or people go on the river, it's flat water. Right. So people prefer that sometimes. But I still think windsurfing is the best sport of all times. Okay,
got a windsurf fan. Cool, so you're doing this thing, you're studying in Germany, linguistics, you're also going to school in this. What happened from there?
So this windsurfing brand, they had a guy starting to be a marketing manager who's been working with them as freelancer for a while. And then he only stayed for, I can't remember, I think like half a year maybe, and then he went and did something else. And then the company went like, we really need someone in marketing. Nathalie, do you want to do marketing? And there was a sort of studies that was a dual system that they said they could sponsor that. So I would get a salary, and I went studying while I was working there, and sort of they sponsored my education. And for me, this was amazing. Like this was everything I wanted to do. It was sports, it was business. I loved that store. I loved the people. I had an amazing boss there. So I skipped out of uni, or basically changed uni to a different uni, and then I went into business and e-commerce. It was back then, and
really
focus on marketing.
What year was this?
Yeah, so this was 2003 or 4. Yeah.
So you were entering into the e-commerce space back in 2003.
Yes, and I had not really an idea what it was. Like I wanted to do business, and e-commerce sort of came with it. And then I got totally excited by it. So, it's great. It's obviously changed so much, but we were one of the first experimental cases, who went onto Facebook back then. So that was a great case study to be part of from so early. And just knowing the fundamentals still really helps now to understand all the technical side.
What was it like back then? Because was it the new marketing manager guy sort of saying, okay, Nathalie, this is what e-commerce is, this is what we're going to be doing, blah, blah, blah? Or was it more like you learning with him at the same time?
No, so he had left. So it was the owner of the business, and then there were various other people who worked for that same brand. Okay. And then sort of me learning how to do marketing and commerce at uni, and then applying it on the job and sort of learning as I went. And then the owner, he had fantastic ideas. Like he's a great entrepreneur and very creative, and so there was a lot of brainstorming and trying to figure things out. So it was very much like hands-on, practical learning as I went, and I didn't really have a mentor or someone or like a manager that I could learn from marketing specifically.
Because you're like right at the beginning, and this wasn't even a thing. Like, getting the idea of just getting a website was very difficult for our country, let alone you're busting this out in Germany.
Yeah, and back then, I mean, it was much more traditional. So and ECOM was more seen as a sales tool, and also just for B2B as well. So it wasn't very consumer focused back in that day. And marketing itself was much more traditional still. So print advertising was a big part of it, just branding generally, product texts, product photos, lifestyle photography, all those things. So that's what I was looking after. And then, ecom was more learning how, like really the technical sides of websites, FTP servers, all those things, like how does it all work? How does the internet work? Wow. All those things.
Did you have to learn how to code? Because I'm assuming that would have been back with HTML, basic CSS.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I learned HTML, bit of PHP, bit of Flash, like all those things.
Flash! I remember Flash! Man, we're showing our age today. So, all right, smashing this out. That's super amazing. You would have to be one of the most senior people I've known, I've talked to about this concept. Period. Absolutely period. So super, super interesting. So was there many challenges that you found when trying to execute this? Or was it more like just the basic level of just a brochure website at that stage? Just trying to get visualization of it from a digital perspective to inquire leads, or was it the actual conversion of sales on the site and actually trying to take people's money on the website? Was it at that stage at that time? or was that sort of on the way?
No, not really. So, I mean, there wasn't online sales at all. And even, windsurfing boards are pretty big boards. So
Quite expensive, I guess.
yeah, that as well. So, it took a long time for people to trust that, and to, even now with videos and so on, it was a product that for the longest time people wanted to go and they wanted to see it and, see it on the floor, like touch it and have the, this full experience before they invested that kind of money and not just order it online. And also they were very fragile to send. So
oh, really?
So the website was more of a branding exercise. It was an online catalog. It was really seen as an online catalog and a business card for the business that was online and accessible from everywhere and anywhere, and you could save printing costs for the catalog.
That is fantastic. So that's actually really cool. So you're busting this out back in 2003. How many years were you doing that for?
So with this company, I was like four years, about 4 or 5 years. Geez, memory was so long ago now. Yeah. But actually, with this business, I went on a trip to South Africa, to Cape Town, because there was the biggest windsurf board test of the German surf magazine, which is the biggest windsurf magazine in the world as well. And they tested boards. So I had the privilege of going there on behalf of the business and introducing those boards there for their testing and their reviews. And there I met the entire industry of, the windsurfing industry. And there's some really, there were big brands out there that, still out there today. And I met all the people there, so it was fantastic for networking. And I made some really, good friends there, and people helped me a lot. And it was so great to just exchange knowledge and be part of all that. And I was very starstruck as well, because I was just such a big fan, and I was, into windsurfing myself so much. And suddenly all those people were there that I only knew
talk to
from magazines. Yeah. So I met my future boss. I met him there. And so I changed from the brand that I was with to work for Boards & More, which is based in Munich. And I was working for North Sails. And North Sails you may know from the sailboat brand.
I'm so sorry. I don't know. I don't know anything. I know a little, but not that. So Norsec is a catamaran sailing boat style, or is it more?
They do all sorts of sailboat sales, but I was working for the windsurfing division, which is they were paying royalties to North Sails, the actual brand, which is from Italy, and they had the rights for windsurfing. But part of this brand was also Mistral, Fanatic, F2, Santa Cruz Snowboards back then when I started, and Iron Essentials. And they actually recently changed their name. So they broke off from North Sails, and they're called Duotone now. So it's still the same company, but I was working for them starting off as a junior marketing manager. And then I took over the marketing manager area sales position after about a year, which was sort of a transition from a distributor model to the biggest markets to do an agent model,
right?
Which was France, the Netherlands, the UK, and Germany. They already owned that distribution anyway. So that was a really exciting time, and there was a lot of direct international marketing into those countries and working with agents there, and then starting talking to agencies and all those things. So it's very exciting.
Wow. Okay, that's huge. So you're working with that guy. The guy then, you go to this presentation in Cape Town that's huge. He technically snapped you and offered you something amazing. And then you're working for this guy with North Sails. And North Sails has the royalty rights to all these other nations that you were managing?
So they had the full rights for the windsurfing division of North Sails, and they were doing the international business. So all countries they were distributing to. I can't remember the exact number of countries, but I'm sure it would have been like everywhere where there's windsurfing, basically. I think at least like 40 countries.
Everywhere, yeah.
Yeah, it's everywhere. And then when I changed to be the marketing manager area sales, this was then for all brands. So I had North Kiteboarding back then as well, which was big and was bigger than North Sails almost. And Iron was a new emerging brand, which is wetsuits and clothing. And so, yeah, it was super exciting to the variety of brands as well.
Far out, that's huge. That's really, okay, so, and then you're pretty much just traveling to all these, are you required to travel to all these countries to then, see the shops, or like, yeah. What was it you actually did?
So back at boards and more, I didn't travel that much. We had distributor meetings that we did at places where people could test the gear, where the distributors could test the gear. So the most exciting one for me probably was Mauritius. So everyone was flying to Mauritius. We did presentations there, and everyone could test the gear. So
what does a presentation look like? I gotta slow this down because you are like so fast. I gotta slow this down.
Sorry.
No, it's totally fine. I'm just slow. So you're okay. So there's I'm just envisioning there's lots of products that are with the sailing division, the windsurfing division, and in that you're then also getting access to these other wetsuits and other products, and then you've got people who have, I'm guessing, stores. That would be the divisions, from what you said, and they all are coming to Mauritius with you, and you're putting on a show and showing these products and trying to get them to buy them all?
So
is that it?
They were not even stores, they were distributors. So most of the brands that I've been working for, they have one exclusive distributor in each country. So there's one distribution company, which is like a wholesaler, and they then distribute to the stores, which are retailers.
So you got single guys who have to learn all this knowledge of these products, and then they have to go do all the hard work of selling it to the retailers.
Yeah, so it's not one person usually. That would be the agent model. You have the agent and they get all the marketing support and everything from the headquarter. But if you have a distributor model, then they have their own company in their country and they have the distribution rights for the brand that you work for if you work for the headquarter of the brand.
Is that because it jumped really quick from when you were doing the digital websiting for a certain business to now covering all these countries. Holy fuck, that's big. So how did that jump go to try and you're required to be the promoter to these distributors? So I'm guessing you got to have lots of really good relationships with these guys, communicate all their needs. Was that kind of the core?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was pretty young back then, so I was start of my 20s, and so the jump from going from the smaller brand that also had international distributors, but it was just much smaller and it wasn't enough to travel there and do big meetings. So the biggest focus was Germany, as in the German market, and they were also a retailer, so it was just much more local. And then the jump to going to the other job where this was much bigger scale. This was a big jump, and it was probably a bit early for my age.
Yeah.
So it was very stressful, but also very exciting, and I learned so much then.
Makes sense. So this is back in 2007?
Yeah, that would have been around, I think, between 2006 and 2008.
Just before the crash.
Yeah, before the financial crisis.
Yeah,
yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're so you're building all these relationships with all these other countries, and then as you're building these relationships with these countries, you're getting to go to these really nice places, and you're getting to test all these products. Did you ever have a say in what the product process was like, or were you always here's the product, send it to the world?
I probably could have given feedback, but to be honest, in this company, we were sponsoring the best windsurfers. We were working with the Moreno twins, with Björn Dunkerberg, with Nick Baker. That's just a few, and they were so big back then, and they are incredible, just experts in what they're doing.
So you knew they already had good feedback already.
They all had feedback on and helped developing those products, which was fantastic because I always knew I was selling the best products, and for me, working in marketing, that's always been a really, really important thing, a really big priority, that I sell something that I believe in. And obviously I was just fangirling, over all those products. And I was just soaking it all up. I just wanted to know everything about the technical aspect of the products. I just wanted to talk to the sales designer I knew really well, and we were friends, and just to learn everything, how they work, and a lot of learning.
It was so technically you were at a space where you were selling ice cream to kids, really. People who just loved it and was already a fan to just jump in and get them. Yeah,
so the biggest challenge really was that the market sort of started to shrink a little because windsurfing just, got a bit smaller, and there was kite surfing, and it's a very hard sport to learn. It's quite expensive to buy all the gear. It's not everybody lives at a lake, so there's travel costs involved. and all those different things. So the market got quite tight, and the competition got it got really competitive between the brands. And there was another big company in Munich, that
was it? So you actually had people that would fight over kite versus windsurf.
No, more so. I only buy windsurfing gear once every 3 years or so. Which brand am I going to buy? Which brand is am I loyal to? Sort of what car brand do you buy? If you're more into your Mercedes, you're probably gonna stick with that brand or like to stick with this brand. If you're more of a Volkswagen person, this is more yours. And so their branding became very important, and just the inspiration, the people behind the brand, like that, people could associate with, and clients and customers could associate with, and got inspired by, and then just trusting in the quality of the product because they had the choice. They could choose this sale or this sale or this sale and any of those brands. So if you could explain to them what's good about it, what's unique about it, while the technology actually didn't change a huge amount every year. So this was the biggest challenge back then. So it was very competitive marketing, even though it was so much fun and so inspiring and about an activity that is fun for everybody.
I'm coming from a point where my knowledge in this space, I am quite. I surfed when I was in Geraldton, back when I was like in university and high school. But then after that, it kind of died off and I haven't been in it. So I missed the whole windsurfing, kite surfing, takeoff. I missed that. Like other friends of mine jumped on it and they're like huge players.
Because Geraldton
they're really good at it.
Is known worldwide.
Oh, yeah.
Like everyone who's into kite surfing or windsurfing or wing foiling, anything that's up and emerging now is knows Geraldton.
I think one of the councils actually had one of their logo emblems of the windy bend over tree. When you're driving up to Geraldton,
yeah, I know that
big
tree
ass
very
tree
well.
that's full. Yeah. So it's like, oh my gosh. Okay, so being that you're like having to be required at such a young age, which is very inspirational, by the way, to manage all these different distributors and pretty much promote this product, which you already were massively knowledgeable about. How did it go from there? Like being able to discuss with all these different nations and then dealing with these different cultures, and which you probably already had exposure to already as a young person. But how was that like going from there and on to the next phase?
Yeah, absolutely loved it. And there's so much to learn again, because every country is different, every market is different, every distributor is different and has a different opinion. So to really understand a market, I still strongly believe you have to be in the market. And we actually, back at Baltimore, there was a bit of a policy, it was called the being in the market strategy. And I still believe in this now. So at CETA Summit, there was a lot of traveling. So in 2019 was probably the peak of traveling. So there were, I don't know, I think I was on like 22 flights in that year, but not like, across Australia, but long haul.
Prior
overseas.
COVID, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So, of course.
Whoa, okay, cool.
That was the end of it, basically.
The days back then.
But, like it was incredible, the difference that it made to go into the markets, spend a day there, going on a tour with the distributors, visiting some retailers, sitting down and working with them in the office, having conversations with their biggest retail partners as well, and the difference you can make within a few days of consulting, really bringing the brand closer to the people, and also for them gaining trust in, you mean it, the brand is going somewhere, this is consistent, we want to invest in that, we believe in that. It was incredible, and financially we saw a massive change as well. So all the countries that were visited, by sales or marketing people from CETA Summit, they saw a rise in revenue. I think around 30% was, the number in 2019.
So just Boards and More, where you're at the point, is that those conversations that you had with those distributors, like, what was the step from there? Because just around 2008, moving forward, super curious to know, did that continue on with that business? Like, what happened?
So no, I did that for about a year, and the most interesting phase was really the transition phase. So moving away from some of the distributors for the brand and to do their own business in those biggest markets, which was great. It had advantages and disadvantages both at the same time. So having more direct access to a market, is fantastic, but you don't have the same you have to then go and understand the market much better because you don't have your experts on the field.
You're using a contractor effectively.
Yeah, so usually, an agent was hired who was in that country. So in some of those cases, we kept, people working for the distributor who then maybe moved out with the brand, or there were different arrangements. But for back then, it made sense for the brand to go direct into those markets. And then you go in direct. So where before you had been working with a distributor and they had their marketing plan, they knew the media, they knew, they had all their partners there that they work together, people they sponsor, everything really. It's on the headquarter now, and you have to familiarize yourself, and you have to make those bookings. You have to put the plan together yourself, it's a whole different way of working.
Right. So what happened from there? Like, what happened when you started moving from that stage and going from direct to? Actually, I don't know where. I'm getting a bit lost in the process because I have no experience in any of this. Or I've been selling online and doing service for distribution, but this process of working with distributors, I've heard about it, but the only thing I know about distribution is that they effectively just give the product to a person. The person is then required to go to all the retailers to go through. But you were proactive enough to be able to go in and work side by side with each of the distributors. But then you were saying just a moment ago that sometimes the distributors will go and you would have to go direct yourself and become the distributor of that place.
Yeah, and there's a massive amount of different reasons why one is sometimes better than the other, generally.
What is the main, is it profitable to have a distributor or more profitable to be direct?
If you have a good distributor, it's very profitable, yeah. Of course, I mean, it's in their interest to build brand awareness, to sell as much of the brand as possible. It's a fantastic solution. They are experts in their markets. They often have some other brands as well, which is a great door opener. So you get into retail stores maybe that, sometimes they have bigger brands and you're not that big in that market yet. So they can open doors with those bigger brands and then they can bring your smaller brand in as well.
It's quite interesting. There's some people who, and I'm sure you'll be aware of, that sometimes taking a product to a distributor can be quite a scary process because lack of knowledge can create fear and sometimes they just have no awareness of doing that process.
Absolutely. So it's really crucial to choose the right distributor that has the interest and the vision of building up your brand. And there's a lot of product training and brand training, marketing training, all of this involved before you really trust a distributor to do a good job with your brand in their market. And so that's why sales meetings happen. That's why trips happen too. So if someone new comes on board, a new distributor comes on board, you really want to go there and, product train them, product train their staff directly as well. For me, talk to their marketing people, make sure there's brand consistency and they really understand the brand and talk the brand language.
Instead of making something completely obscure that doesn't really connect with what's trying to be stated.
Exactly, yeah. And getting consistency is one of the hardest things, really.
Yes, it is.
And for the longest time, and it's still what you do. There's still a lot of brands that don't have one global, online presence. Like if you have one website and run it in 10 different countries in 10 different languages and sell directly with all the logistics behind it, there's not so many brands that have that dialed down and have built that up yet. So let's say your distributor builds their own websites, which in the case of C2 Summit, a lot of distributors did. And making sure those websites are also reflecting the brand in the perfect way and it's all brand consistent. They're using the right, fonts, language, logo, everything that can go wrong, if you brand something.
Let's bring this in. All right, so you're working with the boards?
Boards and more.
Boards and more.
Boards and more, they're called.
When did you join C2 Summit? What happened between that gap? Let's cross that bridge.
Yeah, right. So I told you I went from studying and working for launch boards and KA sales straight away. Like literally, I submitted my last essay at uni and had the job already. So I flew straight to the World Cup and started working for Baltimore. So this was literally my first day, was going to the World Cup in Sylt and having to do negotiations with the people we sponsored, the athletes we sponsored there, because that's where all the contracts are being done, which I didn't do myself back then, but my boss helped and all. Yeah, but I didn't really have any time in between. And I always loved traveling and obviously windsurfing myself. So I always felt that I wanted to take a year off or some time off to go traveling and to go windsurfing myself. So after this transition had happened at Baltimore to that agent model, and I had been there for a bit over 2 years, 3 years almost, yeah. I felt like, now or never, it's a chance to go off and do, what I want to do for a year. And then so I came to Australia. And
2009?
2009 it was, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you're here in 2009, chilling out. How did that happen?
Having so the first 8 months were spent in Melbourne.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
and been cold.
Actually, I came out with my partner Chris back then, who.
Chris, Black Roll, we love you. Sorry.
He had a job in Melbourne, and that was also a reason why we came to Australia. And it was a nice little push for me to, now it's the right time to go. And so I spent 8 months in Melbourne and really just learning English. Like my English was not very good. I learned a lot on the job at Baltimore because I had to speak English to most distributors. But still, every day, I remember going to the supermarket for the first time, and the lady, because in Germany no one talks in the supermarket, like they go like it's fast and efficient. It's a bit like your warehouse in a way, like you just.
We do not talk. We buy and go.
Yes. And the person behind you gets really angry if there's any too many
small talk.
Yeah, and they have to wait because of that, because you want to talk about the weather. So I came here, and then I went to the supermarket, and the lady at the counter starts talking to me and like asking me if I've been busy today. And in my mind, I was like, I didn't know how to answer. I didn't have the language, and because I was so not prepared, and I was like, that's none of your business. I didn't say that out loud, but it was just such a cultural difference as well. So it really took some time to understand Australians and Australia.
So if I went to Germany and I was like, all right, I'm going to go buy my groceries, I can't expect that no one's going to talk to me or care about my day or anything. They're just like, there's no customer experience. This is like, get your shit, go.
Yeah, but not in an unfriendly way. It's just they're just trying to be efficient, and they think that's what you want.
Oh.
They're like, if they get you out of the supermarket fast, that's
what I want in my life.
Yeah, and you know what? This is such a great example of working internationally, actually, because there's different customer expectations in different countries. Sometimes the timing is different, then maybe there's higher expectation in one country and maybe less high expectations in another country, or they're completely different because of cultural differences. So if you have a brand, you want consistency, but at the same time you have to adapt to the
culture.
Market. Yeah.
101. Oh my God, do you know how many times I've had people come in here and wanted a monoculture focus for their brand structure, and how then it becomes so scary to go to another culture and try to sell the product, even though they know the culture opportunity is, the country's opportunity is very vast. Like I've known many Australian products that have tried to go into the China, Japan, technically the Asian market, and have just utterly failed because of the lack of understanding of the cultural requirements to sell a product there.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest mistakes probably that I see in that is with internationalization is businesses thinking, I've had such a good run here in my own country and I'll do exactly what I've done here. I'll just go there and do exactly the same thing, and not actually engaging experts who've grown up there, who've worked there, who really know the market. Which is, to me, such an important thing. And then also now with e-commerce specifically, to engage agencies there, like even your SEO or we've tried to get to work with an US agency in Australia, and that's even gotten hard. Like we stopped that. Like it was just too hard because there's small little, there's language barriers still, even though it's the same language essentially.
American, it's okay. American culture it's completely very different to Australia. So you're at the shop, you're learning how to speak English, crazy experiences. How did it go from living in Melbourne to that next step with Chris? Like, where did you guys go to after those first couple of months?
He was working at a diesel engine company there.
Really?
Yeah. And he
In the mining sector or something?
Yeah, also like they do.
What?
They
I didn't
do
know that about
power
Chris.
generators and diesel engines.
Oh,
and
wait, he's an engineer, isn't he?
yeah,
That's his background.
Yeah.
I should
So
have known that about Chris.
it's a German company that had a branch here in Melbourne, and so he went and worked there.
Nice.
And I went and I did all sorts of casual jobs. So I actually worked at a cafe, and I love Torquay. I went down to Torquay obviously all the time. Just I was there, and we always wanted to come to Perth, and WA was really high on the list because we knew great windsurfing. Everyone in Torquay went on about how great the beaches are in WA, and I was like, well, this is amazing beaches here. Like, what can be better? Even I was like, WA that's where I need to go.
Wow.
So
so cool.
We had this really old, crappy van. So when Chris was done at the diesel engine company, we drove over to WA through the Nullarbor.
Was it that Volkswagen one that you guys were talking about?
No, that was new.
Worse one than...
No, this was like an old... Oh, I don't know the brand anymore, but it was so rusty that you could actually see through the floor. You could see the street through the floor. It had no aircon. The engine was under the seat, so it got so hot, and it was already hot in the Nullarbor.
It must have been a Mitsubishi, I think it was.
I think maybe it was, yeah.
Yeah, I know the one.
That's horrible, I don't even remember.
It's okay. Wow, what a cool story.
Trauma has deleted that from my memory.
This is terrible.
But it was a loyal car. We went through the Nullarbor with it. It was so loud we couldn't even listen to the radio. But
What's that, love? Yeah.
But the Nullarbor is so great because it's all straight. You can actually read a book without feeling sick.
Yeah, it's literally. I know what you mean.
Yeah, you could just sit there and read a book. So we drove, and then we drove straight down Scarborough Beach Road to Scarborough Beach, and just loved it. And stayed there and slept on the parking lot there way too long.
In the van.
It's not allowed anymore.
Yeah.
In the van.
What year was this? Do you remember?
That was 2008. So yeah, this all sort of happened within 1 year.
Oh, okay. So 2008. You arrived in 2008. Was it 2008, 2009? Okay, gotcha. And you're there. So you pretty much came because the 2008 crash barely affected us. Like, there was literally no real impact because of the contracts we had with China, with the iron ore trade. So money was still like flowing very normally here.
It's interesting you say that, yeah, because we felt very much when we came here, we felt that too. We felt like, and there was this boom, like a mining boom, right?
Yeah,
but people here were panicking quite a lot about it and really worried about it. And we were like, you're fine. Like, so, and actually the worst damage here, which wasn't a lot of damage, but the worst damage here was insecurity and everyone thinking it will impact Australia and being really hesitant in hiring specifically.
Yes.
So it wasn't a great time to look for jobs.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah. So but it was still easier here than back home. But the problem here was we didn't have a visa, and we, for me in marketing, didn't have a visa, didn't speak the language, didn't know the market. I was really a bad person to hire in that sense.
You know how many people I've had sit at this table and talk about saying the same thing of different country, like brand new, had the drive, just didn't have the opportunity. How did your initial opportunity come here in Perth? Like, how did it kick off?
Yeah, so it was hard, and I applied for so many jobs. And looking back at it now, like now that I've hired quite a lot of people myself as well, I like shake my head like how I try to apply for jobs because I was frantic, I was panicking that I wouldn't find a job, and I made numbers. Like I pushed out close to 300 applications, I think, altogether, like a lot. And I applied for jobs that really weren't the best jobs for me. So if I could recommend anything to anyone younger out there who is looking, really find the job ads that interest you, that you really, really want, and then write a kick-ass application and really go for it and customize it and tell them why you want that job and go for it, rather than making masks and sending the same cover letter everywhere and being superficial.
Yes.
And which wasn't it was still a good application that I sent, and it was the biggest reason why I didn't get a job was the visa, because I relied on a sponsorship visa.
With Chris.
Yes,
of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So none of us had a visa to stay and work here. So for businesses, this was, they wouldn't hire someone like so I went to...
Because, oh my God, you're so right. Because there's a lot of people who I've, like, even when we've brought into our team here, where either their partner has got the visa, they're on the sponsorship side of that visa, it's not too sure if they're going through, or their visa is about to expire, or they're a student. And those people are actually like super competent and really good people. But it's like there's a commonality thought in business. It's like you are not stable. Therefore, you could technically leave the business after we train you up in 3 or 6 months. No, out the door you go.
Yeah.
Like that's a thing.
Well, it's also very expensive. Like what it costs for a business to be nominated, to be okay to sponsor someone to stay here. You have to give insight in your accounting. There's a lot of things you have to do as a business and then also as an individual to get that visa.
We just went through that process ourselves. We have one of our team here. So we literally just finished getting applied as a sponsoring company.
Yeah.
Bloody painful process.
It's super hard, and it's only gotten harder. It's probably harder now than it was back when we went through it. So it was hard. And then actually we did get the visa through Chris's job.
Did they obviously tried really hard? They got it. Chris is stoked now. This is all done.
So got it through. So we got a sponsorship visa through Chris's job back then. So he found a job, got a sponsorship visa. Then I found the job at C2 Summit, which they probably would have sponsored me as well, but it was just coincidence that happened. And then actually permanent residency we got through C2 Summit afterwards. So they did that, which was amazing.
Amazing, yeah. So how did it kick off with C2 Summit? How did that all start? Like under your circumstance? In the beginning.
I kind of invited myself to a job interview, to be honest. The job was advertised, but it was advertised by an agency. But it just sounded really good. It sounded like it was international. There was traveling involved, as in like working with different countries, which I just really wanted. But I thought I probably won't find in WA because there are not a lot of internationally operating businesses here. It wasn't very clear that it was an outdoor sports brand, and I was just interested anyway. And then so I had applied. Well, actually, first this job was advertised by C2 Summit directly, but I didn't know who they were. And I applied for it, never heard back. And I was like, well, it's another one of those. Then
part of the 300 pile.
Yeah, and then there was a similar job advertised by a recruitment agency. And I applied for that job as well. Then they called me up. I applied in the evening. They called me up first thing, like next morning. So I was like, I was the first person they called. And the lady was very excited. They're like, you're a perfect fit for this job. This is incredible. And she got really excited. And we went through the interview process. And she invited me to the interview. And then at the very end, I was like, I just need to check something because I feel like I've applied for a very similar job. Is this the same company? Like, are we talking about C2 Summit? And then she got really short and was just, I can't invite you to the interview anymore. Because if because they wouldn't get commission because I already applied for that job.
Oh, you're shitting me.
And she's like, if you haven't heard back, they probably aren't that interested. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, this is after 300 job applications.
You're losing your shit by this time.
Yeah. I was so devastated. Why did I say that on the phone? Just didn't think they would like not invite me anymore. And then I was like,
German.
I was beating myself up to it. And then next day, I was like, okay, I've got nothing to lose because if, I don't find a job now, I want to leave this country. Like, it's not going to happen anymore. And then I just took all my courage and I called up C2 Summit and I talked to the general manager there who had put out the job ad. And he was like, and I said to him, I was the first person they called back, and I'm clearly the best candidate for a job, and I think you should invite me to a job interview. And then he was like, well, they only gave the job to the agency because he got too busy to review all the applicants, so that's why I had never heard back on the first application either. And he's like, yeah, why don't you just come by this afternoon? And I was like, yes.
Done! Yes!
Yeah.
That's what you need to do, people! Just push up.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And that's the second tip for everyone out there looking for jobs.
Just do it.
Just, I mean, don't be like super pushy or, accept also if it's not working out. But fight a little for what you want.
You gotta have a bit of a grit to you.
Sell yourself, and if you think it's for you and you're the right person for it, make that clear. So that definitely worked for me. And we had a great chat when I went there and clicked straight away with the company owners. And then, funny enough, so I got the job, and then I had the job involved that 2 weeks after I got the job, I had to fly to my first international trade show, which happened to me to be in my hometown in Germany, which is a small town of Friedrichshafen, where the biggest outdoor trade show was happening. And so, yeah, 2 weeks into the job, I was flown back home to do the first
just
work
aligned.
trip. Yeah,
Literally.
and it was amazing.
So parents, so life, it was all good.
Yes.
Came back home.
Yeah, and the coincidence to find that company here, to find that brand here, that for them it was the biggest trade show, was the biggest marketing investment of all, and went to this trade show for 10 years, like every year, and it always was the biggest marketing expense for the brand, and that's where it was also a sort of sales meeting because all the distributors always came to this trade show.
Right. I'm starting to get on the line with you when you're talking about distributors.
Yeah, so the distributors came out of all countries. They came there. The C2 Summit booth is known for being the funnest booth, and everything was happening there. It's a pretty big booth. We show all our products.
Lots of beer, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, that was it. Actually, we imported Coopers. We sent it over from Australia.
Wow.
It's not because I feel like there's so much detail there's so much has happened.
Oh, of course. Like that was like back then, but for that's really good. That's like super courageous. Okay, so you're going home, you're traveling, you're back in the travel boat. Like, you're really blessed. Holy crap, man. That's crazy. So you're going home, you're selling the products now. Did you have the same passion for this product as you did the windsurfing stuff? Or was it like you had to or is it technically the same thing?
No, so that's a very good question, actually.
Yeah.
Because it did take me... So first, when I started, I was like, okay, now I'm not working for something I'm like truly passionate about, because I didn't know much about rock climbing, where C2 Summit was big in.
That was a big thing.
Yeah, and mountaineering and all those things. Like, it's just not something I knew a lot about, but I saw a lot of parallels. Like, I like the passion, I like the people. We're sort of the same people in those outdoor sports.
It's just land instead of water.
Yeah, and I was like, maybe that's a good thing. So it's just something completely different. I can apply knowledge that I've collected in one industry to another industry, and or maybe the products are not that technical now anymore, which I thought was a bit of a shame, because I just love the technical aspect about it. And then it turned out it was even better. Like, it's so much like the materials, like everything, because everything's designed in Perth, and like I was sitting next to the designers, and the way they work and the variety of products that C2 Summit designs, there was so much to learn and use for marketing, and do little stories on, do videos on. There's so much to do.
So what is C2 Summit as a whole as a business? What is the core process of C2 Summit? Or what's the core business?
So they come from mountaineering, really, and the first products they made were sleeping bag liners and dry bags, and really comes from a place where one of the owners, Roland Tyson, who still owns the company today with his partner Penny Sanderson, he started making outdoor gear in his bedroom in Fremantle when he was like 18, 19 years old in 1983, and he made gear because they were into mountaineering, him and his friends, and there wasn't any outdoor gear you could buy in Australia. It was just not as easy. Like, it was available in the US or in Europe, but it just wasn't easy to buy it in Australia. And then he trips to Nepal. So he did a ski crossing of the Himalayas, himself, and he just supported his friends with gear and walked down, I think, to the next outdoor store back then and convinced them to stock what he was
selling.
What he was making. And from there, the company sort of started, and it had a different name back then. And C2 Summit came when another mountaineer, which was Rowan's friend, Tim McCartney-Snipe, did the C2 Summit expedition, he was one of the first Australians to climb Mount Everest.
Ah, okay, right. I was trying to figure out.
Yeah, you may know that name. Yeah. I mean, he is quite famous in Australia as well.
Yeah.
And so he basically was dared by someone in a pub that you don't climb a mountain properly if you don't climb it from sea level. So he said, well, I'm going to go and climb it from sea level. So he took a swim. Yeah. So he walked all the way from sea level up onto Mount Everest. And Roland made the gear for that. And so this really increased the demand for the gear that Roland made. And the expedition was called C2 Summit. So then after that, the company, the business and the brand were called C2 Summit from there.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So just in that understanding of that process, and also going from the ones before in the surfing space, it seems like when you're trying to get a product to market, having someone who's really proficient within the sports space or the sport, whatever it is, being able to state that this is the product that I use. We kind of all know this. Like if you're wearing beauty products and this is the beauty product I use, if this is the clothing line, this is the clothing line I use. But whatever it is, it just seems like that's always been a really core thing to build a company up for what it stands for. Has that just proven true over and over again as you've been going through this process?
Yes, absolutely. I think it makes a massive difference if you know what you're talking about and if you're passionate about it yourself. And if you don't do it yourself, like have the interest and really dive deep and get to know the brand and the products. And it's just so important for credibility and authenticity to really, because in the end, you want your customers to trust the brand and to trust the products. And as a marketing person, you are the voice for that business and for those products and for this brand. So if you can't bring that across in an authentic, credible way, it's going to be really hard to get the trust of customers who are experts in those fields as well. So you're trying to connect two fields of experts, the people who make the gear, the people who are using that gear, and need to trust the gear. And if the link, doesn't know what they're talking about or doesn't dive deep and puts out superficial stories, that it's just not going to happen. It's not a good connection.
They'll just call you out real quick and you're full of shit and then get wiped out.
Exactly. And that's why I think you mentioned that in one of the introductions. You said I have a no bullshit approach. Thanks for that. I think I used to call it no fluff approach.
Yeah, that's right.
But that's exactly where this is coming from. That I like to believe that the best marketing people really just believe in the gear they're selling and know what they're talking about. And to me, authenticity always beats originality. Ideally, you have both, but it's not about just being original. It really has to have some substance because people know, customers know.
They're not dumb.
So, exactly.
And dude, in the IT space, like computer gear, I was talking with one of the teammates here, and they're talking about there's a Ryzen or there's a Razer. What's it called, Ian?
What's that called?
The computer graphics card, Raiden?
There's NVIDIA and there's AMD.
Oh, AMD. And if you weren't knowing what you were talking about, they would absolutely roast the guys who pretended to sell something that they knew when they clearly didn't.
Yeah.
And it was just interesting to hear the customer feedback. Being that now, okay, so I'm jumping the gun here. Now that you're working at C2 Summit and you're going through this, you're going back and forth over the last couple of years, what was the experience like going through the growth of that business, because you were with it for a while? 11 years is a long time. That's a decade.
Yeah.
So,
a lot has changed in that time.
Yeah. What was it like back then? And what were some of the cool things you were able to be a part of and learn from through the years that went by?
Yeah. So there was a lot of learning on the job. Seems to be a story for my story. And yeah, I was the only marketing person then when I started. And most of the marketing that was happening was product marketing. So there was the brand got promoted really little, and the awareness level of the brand was actually not very high. But you could talk to every outdoor person and they would find something from C2 Summit in their portfolio at home. They might not, maybe they didn't even know they had it. Often that was the case. So they had a dry bag and there were small logos on it, or cutlery, or a sleeping bag liner, any of those things. And it just wasn't branded that obviously. But they went to the store, and in store, the point of sales was fantastic. Packaging was a massive topic for C2 Summit for the longest time, it still is. And it was the best solution for the problem they were trying to solve, or it was a piece of gear that they didn't even know they needed or that existed.
Hang on a second. So back then, like what just the brand of like Cedar Summit on the actual product was just really small, and you wouldn't see it.
Well,
Like,
mostly because C2 Summit comes from an accessory background, so outdoor accessories, so very small products, and light, super small. So there wasn't much space for a logo.
like what, like cutlery pieces, or
Yeah, cutlery, dry bags,
they just wouldn't write it on the pieces itself.
stuff sacks. Yeah, just like little labels, like quite small.
Right.
And
Okay.
yeah, so it just wasn't a brand, like so much of a brand as such. So converting it from product marketing to a recognizable brand, that was the biggest mission. That is still an ongoing thing, but it's doing really well right now. So now it's more about planning, exposure, but the fundamentals are sorted much more. But there were big missions like consistency first and foremost, because the packaging was very inconsistent, like different colors, different shapes.
Can you give an example of what you mean by packaging? Like a product for what it was to.
Yeah,
what it is?
well, the packaging, how the product is packaged and displayed in store. So you could see two different products from C2 Summit, but you wouldn't necessarily see that this was the same brand. So maybe one was black and one was white, and it didn't really have a different font, but it just looked, there was very inconsistent marking for different product ranges. So
Literally next to each other in the shop, you wouldn't tell.
Ranges would have been branded the same way, as in, you have the cutlery range and that would look the same, and then the dry bag range would look the same, but the dry bag range and the cutlery range would look very different to each other.
Oh, just based on design styling when they were created.
Absolutely. Like graphic design, like those sort of things. And it all looked good, but it was just very different. So that consistency was a massive.
How did that happen along the chain? I'm assuming you would have had the designer sign it off, create it through, because like if we were trying to create because most of these guys are in the e-commerce space and they're trying to sell, some of them will go to retailers and say, hey, look, will you put your stuff in my store? Will you put my stuff in your store? And then they'll put it through. And these guys get super picky. And they might be in a space where they might sell one line of things. Yeah. So you're looking at like multiple lines and trying to process this through. When it's one line, I guess it makes sense because you're going to uniform it all. But if a business starts to raise up to the level you're at, where they got a couple of lines, and having that breakdown, is it just because there's one team that's dealing with the design for one product and there's one team dealing with the design of another product, or was it like the same team dealing with both?
Yeah, no, that's exactly how it happened. So the product designers also did the packaging, and usually there was a design project and it went to a product designer and they designed the product and they also designed the packaging, and just one designer had a different style to the other designer, and it was all amazing. It all looked good because like the designers really, because Roland, who owns the company still, like he's a designer, he has a design background, and he hired the best designers only, like to get into that design team,
Imagine the egos.
is super hard. Yeah.
Got it.
So everything that was put out was really, really great, but it was really just consistency and branding wasn't in the foreground. Like all the focus was just about making the best product, and just offering the best product and offering all the information a customer may need on the packaging to buy it, without necessarily saying, that there's a priority or like a biggest USP that will interest the biggest amount of people out there. It was just, it was very pure, honest product marketing, which is amazing to work for a place like this, because the product was the highest priority.
So is that still, because it sounds like these are challenges when a company gets pretty big, where you have multiple teams with multiple teams with a certain responsibility, but it sounds like those two teams don't talk to each other about how it's going to look when they put them both in the store.
Yeah. So this needed to, but everybody in the company knew this. There needed to be changes. Okay. So it was just to actually then make it happen.
Were you a part of that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of this was driven by marketing, but we did have some consulting help from outside the business as well, who pointed out the same things essentially. So we worked with a marketing agency back then who helped us with a rebranding project, and really a lot of it was simplifying and putting a brand book together. The logo, we changed the logo completely. So it was really like a big change of the logo. So And then applying that to all the products, because there's a lot of SKUs.
Yeah.
It was a big undertaking, redoing all the packaging and point of sales and getting that consistency out in all materials. Because the product ranges were so different as well. So to actually find, a consistent advertising concept as well that worked for all the products wasn't the easiest thing. So it definitely took probably 2-3 years to really get that consistency happening.
Really, it was. So this is not something. And why did it take so long?
Just to roll it out through all the products, to change everything that was already out there, because they were already, we already distributed to so many countries. There was so much stock out there. There was so many marketing materials out there. So to swap that out everywhere, it just took a while, and re-educate all the distributors,
So you have to educate them through. First of all, you got to get everyone on the team on side.
Yeah.
And then they have to all agree unanimously. Then produce the products, and then have them go through the existing product. Because I'm assuming the product, what you're talking about, would it have a sense of seasonality to it, or is it quite a yearly ongoing?
No, and that's definitely a reason why it took long, because it doesn't have seasonality, and there's products in there that have been in the range for, definitely there's some that have been in the range for 10 years. And then sometimes there's inline changes where, they get just improved. All the products in the C2 Summit portfolio are constantly reviewed, as in, have materials changed because all the designers are onto material development. Is there something better now? Could we make this product with a different fabric? Can we reinforce the stitches? Is there something lighter out there that's durable enough? Constantly reviewed and improved.
When you're doing these improvements, with iPhones, they do it almost every 18 months to get a new variation out the door. Big launch. They're doing the iPhone 13 right now. Big, huge push. With the products that you're working with at C2 Summit at the time, because there is obviously great discounts in bulk, you got all this. Is it just based on the fact that a design was set, a big purchase order was set forward, that purchase order has to get chewed through to get the profits back in before the next run goes through? Or was it always it's not that simple, or was there more complexity than that?
No, it was almost less. It was almost more simple. It was more simple.
Okay, cool.
It's sweet. And again, it was a really cool thing about C2 Summit, and for marketing as well. There was no set date. You mentioned the iPhone, where every year around this time, a new iPhone is going to come out. There's expectations there. And sometimes they may or may not have so many changes, but the new phone comes out and it may have a different size, a different color. Yeah. But it may not always be fundamentally different. So that's not how C2 Summit ever operated. So they would only improve something or change something or bring something out when they could truly make it better to what it was before. So there was no set date. There was a product launch cycle which revolved around the trade show in Germany, because that was the biggest launch event, and it was a fantastic place to launch new products.
Was it annual, that event?
Yes, that was annual. So that was around, it used to be in July, then it was in June. So sort of May, we would always launch new products. And this was sort of yearly cycle. And then there were usually a few products that were launched towards the end of the year as well, towards December, January as well.
Because what were the product ranges? You're talking about the bags, talking about cutlery. What other groups of area? Was it footwear? Was it what did it go into?
So the accessories was where it started, smaller things, and then from there to do some more, and it was partly being really interested in getting into some more exciting or bigger, more challenging product ranges. And now that the company was set up really well, it wasn't reliant purely on making unique things, which there was a lot of innovation and unique products that just no one else made. So competition-wise, it was sometimes, it's just something that no one else thought of. Who thinks of that?
What was it?
Give
me examples.
One example is a foldable kitchen sink. So it goes together like this. It's you have 10 liters, comes in a few sizes. And you take it out, and it's proper 10-liter kitchen sink that's self-standing, and you can wash your dishes in for camping. It's fantastic for car camping, for backpacking, for anything, and it's truly innovative.
Wow.
And yeah,
Okay.
I love that as an example. There's a folding bucket, like a bucket that goes like this. Like packable, really, like packability is a big story for that brand. Backpacks that are the small.
So it's literally like anything to help you have a better climbing experience.
Yeah, so it's about to make your time in the outdoors more comfortable, more fun, easier. Solving problems.
I see.
Comfort is a big topic, and that's exactly how then Sea to Summit came into the sleep systems business as well. So sleeping mats, sleeping bags, pillows, like all of those. So this was a big range, or a big step for like a massive step for Sea to Summit to enter that.
When you were entering the business, I just want to bounce back a bit. So when you just got the job and like literally taking you to Germany because you're like, oh, that's German. Let's send her, and she can go promote the product. Let's go.
And like there was a big team. Like we sent 10 people to Germany.
Oh, wow.
Every year. Yeah, so
Okay,
a
cool.
lot of people went.
So, and I remember not a conversation. I watched a story online about the GoPros where one of the challenges when they were first starting was that they launched the GoPro with a certain variation, but then they didn't launch another product the following year, and it stayed in. But then they may have launched it the year after, and then they realized that launching products every year seems to be a critical thing to a product business because it keeps a sense of momentum, it keeps a sense of connection that something always new and exciting is coming around. But as you were saying, sometimes some of the products like cutlery or other components don't have a sense of innovational change. So from what I'm hearing from you, it was always like trying to find different interesting things to create, but then but also building upon the existing ones and improving them, and then selling them again.
Yeah.
So was that something that happened like all the time? Was that like the model at Sea to Summit and you're
So that? I mean there were two things. So either improve what we were already selling or come up with something new that mostly Roland felt like we could make it better than anything else that's out there. So for sleeping mats, the technology was brand new. Like there was nothing like that in the market, and it took like 4 years to really, from the thought of it to really bring it out. It took 4 years. Most recently, the tents. Like this was the biggest launch Sea to Summit ever had, and that was my last launch before I left there 2 months ago. So it was a massive undertaking, and the tents were the same thing. Like it took years to develop them. Roland partnered up with Jake Law, who is a genius in tent making and in pole construction. And they together, came up with something that is just so different. Like the architecture of the tent is completely different, and it solves problems that tents commonly have, like condensation, airflow, setup, stability, all of that. Packability. There's so much innovation in those products. You could have probably sold it okay with half the amount of innovations, but it's just that the perfectionism of doing the best that can be done, like considering every little detail. Nothing that's in a product that's out there is just like even down to the pegs. Like pegs exist, pegs kind of work, right? You could just take them and make the same pegs. You have other innovations in the tent, but no, like even a peg is going to be looked at. Can the material change? Can the shape change? Is there a way that we can get it easier into the ground? Can we make it more durable? Like everything is being questioned about all the details in that product.
What was going through this process like? I'm trying to get a bit of understanding here. When you're going through and creating these innovation products, were you like ever on the process of with Roland? Is Roland?
Yeah. So
with Roland, you're like, Roland, I don't think this is such a good thing, or blah 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 blah. Did you ever have those kind of conversations with him, or were you more like the same with the boards? Like, this is the product, go.
No. So with the tents, I was from a marketing point of view. I mean, a lot of people are probably a bit concerned about launching the tents because it was such a big story, and it was in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
You
We're
know,
gonna pull this one off.
you could think about other things than doing the biggest product launch and financially putting yourself out there, ordering a whole lot of products that are really competitive because there's a lot of good tent brands out there, and relying on the fact that we could market the story and really tell people how much better these tents are, that it's worth buying them. I was definitely worried about it, but I also had trust in just Roland knowing what he was doing, and with all those years there and knowing that it was his gut feel that it's the right thing to do, and the designers who worked on those tents were convinced it's better than anything that's out there, and then having a closer look at those tents. So because even getting samples was ridiculously hard with just COVID shutting down the factories and shutting everything down. So
how much of it COVID's impacted everybody?
Yeah.
So how did that just going a little bit further in it, what did it do to you guys?
Yeah, so at the very beginning when COVID hit, there was so much insecurity. Like what's going to happen is no one's gonna outdoor gear is something you do not have to buy. Like it's something people save on straight away if they struggle with money.
Yeah, true.
And then as the government help came into place, which really internationally in most countries happened, that people started to really go much more outdoors and this was a big boom. It still is a big boom. So many people, going out in nature, couldn't go travel anywhere else, buying camper vans, buying tents, going backpacking, all those things. But this was not something we saw coming at the very start, right? This only happened when people felt financially safe, that we're going to make it through all that. And they still need to find a way to de-stress and going out in nature and taking up outdoor sports and camping, hiking, and so on was just a big part of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because I remember, as soon as the planes were shutting down, it's like, what are we going to do? Well, we might as well fix up the backyard. Might as well go up to Karratha. Well, where else are we going to go?
Exactly. So everyone you talked to, so that was great. But it wasn't something that was given from the start. And then the other issue that we had was we didn't have a big online presence back then in Australia, because we were, so C2 Summit also.
Because it's focused overseas.
Well, and we are wholesalers, so we work with retailers really closely. And
you were B2B business.
Yeah, we had planned everything about, we had just launched a B2C website, direct-to-consumer website for C2 Summit, but C2 Summit here in Australia also imports about 30 brands from other countries. So C2 Summit here has around 31 brands. It changes, so it's between 28 and 31 brands now, distributing them within Australia, so distributing them to retailers. And they weren't available online directly. But then all the retailers shut down.
And fucked, really?
Yeah, so what happened with marketing was my team, we had to do a complete conversion to forget everything you thought you were going to do. We all have to jump online now, and we have to make a website really competitive for direct-to-consumer sales and start marketing it.
Hold on a second. Wait. You guys are a pretty decent sized business. You guys must have known B2C must be on the chain.
Yeah, totally. But to do that for so many brands, and we have big retailers that were doing a great job online and in stores, and it was just something that was a bit of a longer term project.
COVID's just bring it forward today.
Yeah, and now it has to happen tomorrow. So we did have an online presence, but it was more like a product catalog for products. We always supported the retailers a lot, and the preference was always to sell through retailers more than selling through selling direct. So the online catalog was just there for products that were not available in stores, and retailers were hesitant to stock, but they were in the warehouse. So it was more like a backup thing, really.
Yeah.
So to then...
so then to switch gears...
and then suddenly we didn't have so much coverage in Australia anymore with all the retail stores closed. So we had to make this website more compelling and really make sure, had to set priorities of brands we would, address first. And everybody did their part, and, everybody did different jobs to what they thought they were going to do in that year in 2020. And we had a lot of plans, for C2 Summit internationally, for... taking another step forward in branding, doing, videos doing the 10th product launch, which then was delayed. So it was supposed to launch at the start of 2020. And so all of this got changed. It was just a really fast change of priorities, and it was a fantastic exercise. So as a manager for me, with guiding the team, and then suddenly the marketing team became so important for the whole business as well, because we had to get those websites ready to sell. We couldn't sell any other way because retailers were hesitant in buying and stocking as well. So it just had to happen.
How did you? Okay, because was your superpower at this point going to distributors and building that relationship and knowing how much stock they're going to get and getting those deals done. Now that you have that channel is down, how much exposure did you have before to be able to build sites and be able to make it a really nice flow, getting the user to add as much to the cart before transacting out? What was it like going through that?
Quite intense, but
cool.
The entire marketing team at C2Sum, they have a great understanding of e-commerce, so that was fantastic. We have someone who is fantastic at content management. We had someone who was the multimedia coordinator who was fantastic and did all the hands-on work we had a photo studio, video studio in at C2Sum, so everything's actually happening in-house. So we didn't have to negotiate or change plans with agencies, which probably would have taken a lot of time and negotiations and all. But because everything happened in-house, we could really change like that. It was just, people being happy to adapt, which was really the most important skill throughout COVID, wasn't it?
Yes, yes it was.
And I feel just incredibly lucky and also so, proud of my team that how they were able to do that and how everybody worked together. And then also, the sales team coming in and be like, well, yeah, e-commerce, what can we do? How can we help? Our territory managers who were just, they were on the street mostly, seeing retailers. They had really not much to do with e-com at all, but they were straight away I'll take over the chat. We're going to put in a direct chat. People can ask questions,
So they could still have their experience part in the chat messaging.
Yeah. So they changed their jobs from one day to another to accommodate and to adapt. And there was some really great things that we saw coming out of that.
What were some not great things that came out of that? Well, I'm sure there would have been a shit show in a couple of areas.
A lot of stress. So it was hard. It was so much work. And then also just, I guess, knowing we had this shift of priorities, and C2Summit is this international brand. It's a very unique setup that you have this international brand that at the same time imports all those other brands to a country as well. So the fear of, or knowing that while we all shift our priority away from the international brand, basically really put that on hold and solely focusing on e-commerce here right now in our country, and then sort of when everything comes back, knowing that other international brands, they use all their time to work out their branding, to do all that work in the background, sort their data, sort everything they need to come back super strong internationally, and knowing we didn't have the luxury to doing that, but yet once this is over, we need to come back and be competitive with C2Summit, and we do not want to go all the way back and, see other brands emerging
out of nowhere
at a different level.
Yeah.
So that was for me the biggest challenge. Yeah.
Because it makes sense, because if you aren't ready on the online B2C space, someone's going to fill that void pretty quick. And so if it ain't there, then they'll look for somebody else like that.
Yeah.
So when you were talking, I'm not completely understanding what you mean. You got these other brands that are bringing products into the country.
Yeah.
That has been on a purchase order arrangement. Those products are coming in and they're kind of just sitting in the warehouse, locked down. And then you've got the products you guys made, and you go boss is saying, we got to sell this shit, we got to get out the door, go. And so he's pushing for a direct-to-consumer arrangement and making this site, which I know how, and I could imagine what SKU levels are in the thousands.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
3,000, yeah.
3,000 SKUs. And so you got 3,000 SKUs with all these different arrangements, that would have been a mountain of shit to climb over.
Yeah, there was a lot of data sorting, and it's not like you get the most beautiful data, from all the brands you import either. So there was amazing work that was done by people within the company sorting out data. Incredible.
You mean like data as in like what to sell?
Well, even like as simple as product text, the specifications, product names, the images with it, and then uploading. So C2 Summit has their own IT team, and then there's a data manager. There was a person on my team who her project was the distribution website with this product catalog, and luckily this was already up. So the product catalog was already up. But really the bare minimum. So
when you say data manager, you mean someone to just put in the product images and make the copy. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that is right. Yeah. So this is a full-time job, like to get all that ready. Yeah. And then once all of that is done, then to make it appealing, without rebuilding a website.
So did you have to go through a lot of the copy? Like, that is not what the product is. No. Change the copy.
Yeah. I mean, it was, a lot of it was there from the start. But there was a lot of that. Of course, reviewing products. Yeah, like the entire team reviewed, and it was all about like communication was key. So that's another thing that if you ask, what was the biggest challenge or what was a challenge. So we were all working from home in those days.
Oh my gosh, yes, and, working from home and trying to get through all this info.
Absolutely, and the marketing team is not the expert. Like we are not necessarily the expert in every single product, especially the ones we import, because we have brand managers as well. So they go to the sales meetings of those brands. They're the experts. So they help reviewing those products. But then there had to be communication to the person who can change it on the website. Then once products are ready, once we had set priorities, they review it, they change it. Once it was ready, we talked about, we're pushing it out via a newsletter, or how can we get awareness for those products now, and really streamline those efforts that, we were not promoting products that hadn't been reviewed yet, while there's good products that are competitive and would sell well right now. And just setting those priorities as well, because like in that time there was a lot about just backyard camping, a lot of family camping, which wasn't necessarily what usually our priorities were when it came to hardcore rock climbing or mountaineering and all those very technical products.
Yes.
So it was different prioritization. So there was a lot to it, yeah.
So you're in this space and like you're going through this transition. I'm sure there's a fair bit there we could talk about, but just for a time, you got to this point and you're like, okay, all done. What happened there? Like you wanted to close up shop with these guys and move on to the next thing. So just walk me through what happened there.
With the which guys, like to
C2 Summit to follow the rep.
Like when I left C2 Summit, you mean? No, I was looking for a change because I'd been there for 11 years, and I always, in the back of my mind, I had like after 10 years, it's good, to do a change, and basically just being curious what else is out there and to see and learn, and spending some time on learning as well, especially ECOM, so many tools have come out, so much has come out, so it's nice to spend some time on that. I straight away had some clients, some brands that I worked with and businesses I worked with, and consulting and seeing how they can grow and make changes, like that's been really rewarding. Then I've been up to some fun stuff as well. So I've been helping out with Adventure Reels. They are hosting all the big adventure film festivals in Australia. So the Banff Mountain Film Festival, for example. And I was hosting the women's, it's called the Gutsy Girls Adventure Film Festival the other day.
Nice.
So just emceeing on stage, but it was so much fun, and seeing all, especially there was a matinee screening in the afternoon, and there were so many...
Matinee screening?
Like just an afternoon screening.
Oh, okay.
And there were so many moms with their younger girls who sat in there and they watched those movies of, women doing all those outdoor sports and really pushing the limits. And to see those inspired faces, like it was amazing. So that's something fun I've been doing on the side. And there's more festivals coming that I'll help out with. So just a variety on going out, doing, meeting you, finally sitting down for this conversation.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
So it was like you had enough of just being like trying to build these products and get them out, and you're getting exposure while meeting these relationships how they're asking you like, Nat, can you help me here? What do you think I should do about this? What do you think? And then you're just recognizing that this is a space for you.
Yeah, literally just seeing that there is a space for consulting with businesses who want to take the next steps, whether it be going international and maybe wanting to talk to someone who has experience in different markets, especially in Europe, or they are kind of, what often happens is, I have this business and I have this brand and I want to do marketing, but there's so much I can do. I need to be on all the social media channels. I need to do SEO, SEM. There's agencies. Do I need to hire someone? How do I integrate ecom in my business? And just confusion, and so helping to clear that up. So that's been a lot of fun and something I love doing. Then referring to agencies, like sourcing good agencies as well. So rather than acting as an agency, I help businesses find a good agency for them, and also what makes sense for them to work on with an agency as opposed to doing in-house or doing with a freelance person or hiring someone. So that's been really great. Yeah. What else?
So were they really bummed that you left and you were like, no,
I hope so.
Stay? Okay. And so when you called it finalizing it up, and then we're like, all right, guys, I'm gonna run this solo. It's been mostly just trying to build up these different companies along this new journey you're on now. Is that where it's at?
Yeah, basically. And honestly, I don't have all too many plans, which is kind of nice because that's the first time in my life where I'm sort of trying to do things that are fun to me. And I've gained so much experience and I've done so many different things. And I find it hard to decide what exactly I want to do, except for I love the strategic consulting piece. And I love to work international. But it can happen that in half a year's time or whenever, I feel like I really want to be part of a brand again and work in a team. And
you could get it like that.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Well, I would assume so.
So right now it's pretty hard to. I would love to work internationally, and right now it's pretty hard to travel and to start a job that's international without traveling is hard. There's not many WA brands that operate internationally, so to start somewhere, even if you work remote, you still want to go there and spend some time in the headquarters. And all those things.
It seems like today, like more people are being able to get on in communication with Zoom. They're able to connect quickly to be able to close arrangement deals. But I know that there is a space where it used to be very face to face. A lot of air travel. Obviously, air travel does take up into the expense lines in the OPEX space. So then recognizing more of these different businesses are like, okay, cool. Why don't we just get online, make the amazing product design structure, put that together from a sample, send it off, and then have a communication with them when they get there. Is that more of a direction that's going today? Or is it still like, no, let's bring them in, let's do a big party, let's go for it kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it's somewhere in between. Okay. I don't think, we talked about this earlier, how important I think it is to be in the market and really understand. Yes. Like for a salesperson and for a marketing person to have an understanding of those markets, I think is still really important. And you can do more over Zoom and, any sort of one-on-one meetings with a distributor or salespeople you can do. But for sales meetings, we've done it virtually, and to get it really engaging and really draw people in to get that same kind of attention is just harder on video than it is in person. And the social aspects really can't be forgotten, I think. So to have a beer or mineral water after
that's a good point.
After a sales meeting, and to really break down barriers of communication and understand each other and get to know each other. For me, this is still something crucial and something I would always support, and something as a business I would invest in. Wow. And then obviously also going and seeing, if retailers are still a big part of your business, which for C2 Summit it is, and they will stay, to go and visit, big retail chains or, smaller ones as well, but just to see what's going on in their stores.
So normally I finish with a call to action, but I want to do something a little different here. Like, you've seen what it's been like since '03. We're growing in this industry and seeing how this has progressed forward. The industry is very similar to other industries out there. Yes, it's an outdoor sporting space, but technically it can be quite connectable to other areas. With COVID making this massive change that it did to Cedar Summit, and you being a part of that, and then others obviously kind of having an echo effect to it. When the doors open again and the flights start again and everything kicks back on, do you feel like there'll be you kind of touched on it, but just what's your thoughts? Do you think there'll be a retraction back to the things that were? Or do you think now there will be more of an expectation to recognize e-commerce is here to stay and it will be a part of the business strategy to go forward? Like, what's your thought process on what will happen?
Oh, e-commerce is definitely here to stay. And it's just accelerated over the last 2 years so much. So consumer expectations have risen and they will rise further. Expectations on, presentation, like product presentation. It's already like that now, right? You need really good product images. You need really good product videos. You need text. You have to make the customer experience, customer journey through a website, the checkout super easy. So the entire funnel of e-commerce through to the conversion and then customer service and after sales, it has to be seamless, frictionless going forward. And the more you can, the better you can be at that, the more competitive you will be. It's just an expectation that's there and that you can't ignore. And if you're not part of it and if you can't make that happen, you probably have it hard even if you have a really good product. So it's just the new fundamental, thing that you need to, how do you have to operate? And then on top of that is, then only really the marketing comes in, as in, or the creative part of the marketing comes in and the inspiring part, and where, how to reach your people, how to target people, that's always a big challenge. And then also going, quality over quantity is going to be a big, I don't want to call it a trend, but just a recognition that where, it doesn't matter so much how many followers you have on your social media channels or how many people you have in your newsletter account. The interesting thing is the engagement and, how many people actually want to be connected to you and choose to be connected to you. So content strategies, putting out valuable content, not just to cover your keywords, but really offering a benefit and value to your customers and potential customers, to create brand trust, to give product information and to have them keep coming back, and also to give them reason to invest in your brand. Like, how do you reinvest? What do you do for climate change? Like, the next generation, they are all about, and ours too, hopefully, they want to know how the money they invest will be reinvested to do good. And then they feel okay buying from you, and they will choose if they have a choice, they will choose the brand that does that for them. So they feel good about it, which they should.
That's a very good point. Look, Nat, I want to ask you so much more, but if you want to see Nat, and you may not be just checking you might be watching this a little while, but Nat will be coming to speak with us at our event in 2 days' time, which will probably, 1 day, 1 day's time, holy smokes, tomorrow. So actually, now that I think about it, by the time this is produced, the event would have happened. Forget that. Look, thanks so much for coming in. I've learned a lot from you. I did not know nothing about distributions. They seem like, when I think of distribution, I think of an older business model structure that is currently been in place for a while, but then recognizing its importance in the chain of the logistics structure of how that works. But knowing that you've been in there, thank you for sharing that. I hope other people, just before I finish this, do you think this model is something still worth, because you went into a lot of the e-commerce in your discussion, do you think that the distribution model is still a valid one to source after if you're in e-commerce space, or is it just run the lane of e-commerce?
Yeah, very good question. I think it's crucial you find the right distributor. If you find a right and good distributor, it's absolutely worthwhile. So because you can't possibly start, as a medium-sized business, or if you are not internationally set up for e-commerce, you cannot cover, a whole lot of countries even in 1 year, to even build, sort out the logistics, sort out the website, all of this, to make that happen in 1 year, it's almost impossible. So having good distributors in some countries that make that happen for you, really understand the brand, are happy to invest in it, and there's loyalty on both sides. I think the distribution model still has a lot of merit, and it's great to have, especially if there's big cultural and language barriers as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I do think it has, and I think probably the best business models right now are a combination. And it depends on it depends on the distributor, it depends on the business, where you're located, which markets you want to go into, which one you should choose.
Fantastic.
It's very individual.
Thanks so much. We're going to call it there. Till the next one. Thanks so much, Nat.
Thanks for having me.